Well, hello! I'd like to welcome you to another exciting episode of Pens in Use. This is the show where I talk about the fountain pens and inks that I've been using through the week. If videos like this interest you, where I talk about fountain pens both new and old and at all price points, I would invite you to subscribe. And hey, maybe you'll see something or hear something you'd like to comment on later. Perhaps you'd like to comment on a few of the nibs or some of the note-taking topics I'll bring up. So let's dive into the pens. So from left to right, this was up last week, but it's here again with a different nib. This is a Parker Sonnet. Omas Ogiva, cocktail of some kind. Almost empty cocktail. Platinum Procyon, which is kind of a nifty pen that I enjoyed. Finally published its first impression this week. Kaco Edge, another good first impression I did. Jinhao 51A. Sailor 1911. Aurora 88. A Lamy Dialog 3. PenBBS 456 with a gorgeous finish. And finally, an almost empty Pontiac. No, not the car. As always, I'll be using my Bomo art journal, made in Budapest, Hungary, to record my impressions. So my Parker Sonnet, I had purchased two nibs with it off of eBay. And one was a right oblique, one was the left oblique. Last week I wrote with the right oblique. Emptied the pen out because it was a lot of fun. This week I have the left oblique. It feels a little weird. Not sure if I like it or not yet, but I'll give you a chance to look at it and to compare the two pens. I will just point out that Parker does its right and left oblique in reverse from how most pen manufacturers do it. I really don't know why. So my lovely Parker Sonnet. You know, Parker makes nice quality pens. This has a left oblique nib on it. It doesn't have nearly the amount of grind on it that the right oblique did, but I just want to match stroke for stroke what I have above, and I even used the same ink, so I have to turn it slightly now this way. Of course, the ink in it is Robert Oster Terracotta. Okay, it shouldn't bother me, but I don't like this nib as well. It writes just fine. It's very smooth. It's a very good writer. Pull that out just a teeny bit. Writes very well. It's a very smooth writer, but it just feels uncomfortable holding that pen in that position. In fact, I feel like when I go back upstairs, I'm going to unscrew this nib and screw back in the other one. Sorry. But as I understand it, these nibs are more suited to left-handed writers, which clearly I am not. My next pen is the Omas Ogiva. Don't be surprised if this isn't among the pens next week, because as you can see, almost empty. Which is getting to be a problem for me, getting pens empty. I'm good at filling them. And usually I have always been good at keeping my number of inked pens down. But doing these first impressions, one of my rules is I can't put the first impression on, or I can't show you the first impression on video until you've seen the actual video, the first impression video. So all those pens end up floating around and they can't appear on pens in use. Of course, they do get used in a lot of other places. I just batch filmed 5 videos last week. It actually helps a lot having a bunch of videos ahead. I'm 1 review ahead, and after tonight I'm going to be 2 reviews ahead and 1 more first impression ahead. It just helps a lot to have that reserve supply, and then I feel more free to be creative. Or when I get a busy week, I just, pull one out of reserve and go with it. Either way, it works. So this is the Omas Ogiva, very wet pen. I like this ink. I think it's okay in this pen, but honestly, a drier pen shows this ink off better, if that makes sense. I did my first impression of this. I actually had the same ink in it during the first impression, because when it ran empty, I refilled it with the same ink. But I feel like after I run it dry this time, I'm going to have to refill it with something else just to give it an honest review, because what I try to do with my reviews is use them for a while with a variety of inks and papers and conditions. But that said, this is quite the ink. And I almost feel like it would look good in that Omas Ogiva. The ink is Bungubox. Sweet Potato Purple, which I am told is a thing, just maybe not necessarily with your typical sweet potatoes that you buy in the United States. Dare I admit I don't particularly care for sweet potatoes? Am I allowed to say that? But it could be the way I've always eaten them prepared. I don't have much of a taste for sweet, so that's part of my problem. So I was told that this is the same nib as is on a Platinum Preppy. I brought a Platinum Preppy down with me. Empty. I don't know if I've ever used this one. So we'll check out the nib here. Maybe. So now let's bring out the Procyon, and we'll throw these pups side by side. So I suppose some superficial similarity. Neither one has a breather hole. The Procyon is a lot longer and more slender. Also a bit more bounce to it. It's more flexible. Both do clip onto the feed, but the Procyon has a interesting mechanism for filling toward the end of the feed. I will just say that the Preppy and the Poussière have the same nib, so I'm not going to bother pulling out the Poussière. I will pull out a Platinum Cool, because that's the other pen that I was told that that the nib is similar to. The Platinum Cool, don't yell at me, but is engaged in a research project to be continued possibly this summer. So when you see the inked up mess that's inside of it, that's why. Okay, again, not a whole lot of similarity there. The Platinum Procyon nib is decidedly its own animal. So I hope that helps those who were wondering about that when I did my first impression earlier this week. Well, published my first impression earlier this week. I've been using the pen for several months. Another pen that I've enjoyed since its first impression is the Kaco Retro. I don't remember. I'd have to look through my... Oh, I must have refilled it because this is a sample of ink I bought fairly recently. Hooded nib, which when I review it is going to be a deal. I don't mind a hooded nib, but sometimes it's hard to tell which way you're writing. What is this, an extra fine, I want to say? Yep, okay. Iroshizuku. Let's see if I can spell this correctly. Mirasaki-shikibu. Very attractive purple, actually. Doesn't quite thrill me the way the sweet potato purple does, but it's definitely attractive. I brought its beautiful friend. I love that finish. The Jinhao 51A. Another hooded nib. And apparently also sold as a non-hooded option, but I don't have that. The ink I have in this pen, oh, I should maybe give the nib size, is an extra fine. The ink I have in this side is Rohrer and Klingner Fernambuk. Fernambuk? I'm not quite sure how to say it. Always a reliable writer. It can sit for several weeks, and I pick it up and just zoop, it writes. This is another very good pen for if you get bored with it, you just set it aside for a while and you don't worry about it drying out. This is my Sailor 1911 Realo. The Realo refers to the fact it's a piston filling pen rather than a cartridge converter pen. So this is a Sailor 1911 Realo. And it's a hard, broad nib on it. The ink is Private Reserve Ebony Green, which when you use some pens comes out as just almost black. I kind of like the dark green look that it has in this pen. It just looks good in this pen. Am I allowed to say that? Maybe I'd be allowed to say it if I kept all my writing on the screen. The beautiful, beautiful Aurora 88. I'll just note I did purchase on the recommendation of a viewer at Tali's Crack Cure, so I may try it there, or I may just decide to live with this for a while longer. I haven't decided yet. But I do have some pens where I think that will help out, so I'm going to try it out. And don't worry, they're vintage pens where the warranty is long since worn off. So this is one of their flex nibs. Hardly, oh my god. Oh. Well, that ended that. There's no ink in the pen. Apparently, I emptied it out and forgot to put it in my group of pens to be cleaned. So that would be my fault, not the pen's fault. This is a Lamy Dialog 3 with an oblique medium nib. I will be discussing one or two gold nibs on Lamys in upcoming first impressions. So keep this in mind when I get to them. Also keep in mind that this pen has been sitting for several weeks and not been used. Not that I don't like the pen, I just haven't used it. But did you see how it just started up like a champ? This is a very good high quality pen. The ink in this is Rohrer and Klingner. Blue Mare, something like that. Which I know has to do with ocean. Oh, there's no E in their version of blue. And yeah, that just makes me think of like a tropical ocean. Not that I've ever been to one, but hey, the snow is 50% melted in my yard. PenBBS 456. This is a vac filler like a Pilot Custom 823, and I'll tell you the big problem I have with these PenBBS pens, this one and the other one that I've been using lately, they hold so much flippin' ink, you actually get bored with the color before it runs out. That's just a problem with vac fillers in general, and what's the other one? It's like the Conid bulk filler mechanism. Can't remember its name. Now, after I do my review of this pen, when that finally comes, I'm whipping this nib out. I'm going to put in a much more fun broad or stub nib. But for now, that's what's in it. For better or for worse. So I'll let you know a little something about these pens. Every so often, just like on a Pilot Custom 823, you gotta let the ink flow down. And guess who didn't? And the ink in it is Sailor Jentle Waka-uguisu, which I think stands for green tea. Uguisu, something like that. And truthfully, I held it up to the light there wondering if, well, perhaps hoping it was finally empty, trying to tell how much ink was left in it. You can barely make it out, but there is more ink than I would like left in it. But we'll get there. Perhaps I don't need to do 3 full fills on that one just because it holds so much ink. I certainly got my writing experience out of the way with it. Alright, this is a Pontiac Dutch prototype pen. I may review it soon. I haven't decided yet when or if, because didn't come with its own nib, didn't come with its own clip. Instead, it has a modern clip and a modern Knox nib on it. So it's almost like, oh, do I bother? Because it's not going to be like what people would really see. I like it, but it's sort of a Franken-pen. But maybe just for that reason makes it worth reviewing, just because it's unique. Because I'm told that occasionally I pull out some rather unique pens. And this is a very wet, wonderful pen. My original idea was I was going to replace the nib, but I've come to really enjoy that nib on it, so I no longer have any desire to replace the nib, for better or for worse. So those are the pens and inks that I've been using this week. A little bit of variety there. Most of these are pens that I would actually take to school and do. One thing I've been thinking about this week is, you don't know this because you've never visited my house, but I don't have a desk. When I filmed this, I'm actually sitting in my basement. That's why you hear the furnace going. I forgot to turn it off because I thought it'd be warm enough I didn't need to. I've got a green sheet behind me, because you can't see it, that's hiding an ugly cinder block wall. That's why I started doing green screen, because when I moved to the basement I don't have a good background. But I've been thinking about getting a proper desk, because upstairs I don't have a desk. If I work, I usually either work at the kitchen table, or I have a lap desk and I'll sit on the couch and work. I would like a dedicated work area. Now, a small house, 672 square feet. So I've been looking at a couple of options that are folding desks that, you know, are just a bookshelf where the desk, well, one of them, the desk folds up and legs pop out. The other one hangs on the wall and then the desk comes down and has legs that come down with it. I've been looking at those two options and then considering possibly moving filming back upstairs. I haven't decided yet. You know, one of the things I've enjoyed about filming down here is I can leave everything set up and I can leave it messy. Whereas if it's upstairs, it's kind of got to get hidden away and I have to clean around it and so on. The other thing that's been kind of fun down here is, with that as my background, I can I discovered I make faces and so on, so I decided to embrace it, and the faces are very nice for superimposing over top of my title screens as sort of branding. Wouldn't be as easy if I'm using no green screen. So a couple of things for me to think about there. I haven't decided yet. The desk is a for sure. Whether I move back upstairs with it, I don't know. But you know, I'd like to have a nice dedicated work area with those nice pens and so on. You know, those pens that don't go to school, because I have a few. That Aurora 88 would be one of the ones that does not go to school. So anyway, that's one of those things that I've been looking at. No decisions yet, just thoughts. I'd like to shop around a little. I have found a wood one that hangs on the wall that I like very much, but you know, when you live where I live, it's not like you can try them out. A couple of the other things I've been working on, I'm just looking at my list because I had a small list of topics. It's just productivity. For years I've been using kind of a basic bullet journal, and I feel like I've been running into either its limitations or its irritations lately. I am pretty good about writing down my tasks for the day, and I like the same bullet journal because I use one of those Midori Traveler's notebooks. Same thing, another section of it is a calendar, and then I have another section that's just blank paper. And the blank paper one is almost filled up. I'm coming up to the end of the school year, which means the other two inserts are almost done. And I've been thinking about, is it the best for me? Some of the things I like is it's portable, it's always with me. But I also now have one of these as of a month ago. And no, I'm not on it a whole lot. I can't get into texting, I can't get into all that other nonsense. But I have found some handy things, like Evernote is on there. I've always been a heavy user of Evernote because it's great for organizing information, and it's really good for project managing. In fact, Evernote's kind of the backbone of this channel. It's where I organize my videos and my research, and you know, the list of pens down there was typed first in Evernote. So it's handy to have it on the phone, and you know, Science Olympiad. There's my Science Olympiad information right there at my fingertips, and so on. So I've been using that more for some of my productivity. I like calendars that are online. I always liked the paper one because I could carry it with me. Can't carry a laptop with you. But when it's on the phone, I can carry the phone with me and have the calendar with me. So there is that. I like Todoist. I've been experimenting with that as sort of a to-do list software. I'm not sure how well I like it. It taught me to organize projects into specific actions much better than I have done. But I haven't decided how well I work with it yet. Because I like that paper thing. But one thing I have started doing, I went through a brief spell where I would write anytime I had an idea. I realized, you know, you have to capture it. Well, that bullet journal thing, You know, they're all over the place. You can't find them. So then I had the brainwave of, well, I read about this pile of index card system. So I started writing it on index cards and organizing them by categories. So I always had to carry index cards with me. That worked well until I started having lots of index cards and said, oh my God, that's a lot of index cards. And it's nice. You can spread them out. You can rearrange them. I love that for research, and I think I'll continue using index cards for research. But for a lot of things, like you're teaching one day and you think, oh, I should do that with my notes. And so you write yourself a quick note in an index card. Rather than in the, I mean, it's a step up from that notebook that has stuff blopped everywhere. But still not good enough. So I've started carrying a memo notebook, a little field notes notebook in my pocket, which is nice because it can go everywhere with me now. Put my little to-dos on it. The other thing I can do, though, is at the end of the day, there's my, oh, there's that thought I had while I was teaching about phases of the moon. So quick type that into this category. And so I'm kind of liking that marriage of electronic and paper. I see myself this spring, after school is over, of course, printing off these notes pages for all these different classes and organizing those notes in a paper notebook and then hopefully to put into practice for next year. So we'll see. I've been thinking about a series of organization videos for students anyway, based on kind of going off my notebook, my note-taking videos I did a year or so ago. And I think this might dovetail nicely with it because I've had a lot of thoughts about students, and I've 20 years of watching students succeed and fail. You kind of get an idea what the ones do that works and what the ones that it doesn't work. And certainly I've been a student myself, and I know what doesn't work for sure because I lived it. So I've been thinking about that as a series this summer. Instead of note-taking, get into personal organization. And I'd like to keep it tool agnostic for a while and just look at specific techniques and things you should do. But I will say, ever since I started carrying that pocket notebook, that little field notes, that's one tool I recommend is a little pocket notebook that fits in your pocket and is with you at all times. I recommend that. I don't care whether you do an electronic calendar or a paper calendar or electronic to-do lists or paper to-do lists, all the other stuff. But that's one tool I recommend to anybody. So the only other thing I have here is just the other thing I've realized is researching productivity can become a time suck all by itself and waste all your time. A lot of times it's better to stick with a tool and just go with it unless you have a compelling reason to switch. My compelling reason to switch away from the bullet journal is I'm just finding it's not capturing the wide variety of the work I do as well as I would like. I know it works for some people, but it is not working for me, and not anymore. It was working, but with Science Olympiad and me being the only coach and me trying to get the success we had this year, I just can't keep on top of everything along with teaching and keeping this channel up and everything else. And that's why I've been looking at other organization schemes. And I'm not as busy as I was before regionals because we're going to state with badly undersized teams, one of them about half the size it should be. So, I want us to do well in the events we're in, but there's no way we're going to do well in everything enough to go to nationals. We're competing against the Fargos and Bismarcks, and I'm from a school of 450 kids, K through 12. So, do the math. But it's a good experience for the kids, and I like them to see a university campus. I like them to compete at that level, even if it's in just doing well in just those events that they are in. And that's why I do it. But the pressure is off because, I don't want one of my students to hear this and get the wrong impression, but we're not going to win. So it's just kind of nice. I've got a little more free time now. And so and it's good because it's dovetailed with this increased interest in productivity. And being sick for multiple days, was that last week or the week before? Definitely was that was another experience all by itself. and where I discovered how much productivity I needed to work on. So yeah, I'm hoping out of this comes some good systems for next year where I'm more productive and can create more, and more importantly can balance things in my life a lot better. So if you have any thoughts on any of that, productivity, teaching productivity to students, productive students, I have several books I'm going to be reading. If maybe you have some recommendations, please feel free to leave a comment down below. And as always, I want to thank you for watching. And if videos like this interest you, where I talk about fountain pens both new and old and at all price points, I would invite you to subscribe. And again, if you'd like to throw in some comments about productivity, software you've tried, or systems you've tried, or bullet journaling, or perhaps one of the pens I was using tonight, please feel free to leave your comments down below. So far, I'm able to respond to all of them. So as always, I want to thank you for watching. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.